So today we're working with the volumes of prisms, particularly rectangular prisms and triangular prisms. Now, a rectangular prism always has bases that are congruent rectangles. So what you do is you look at your three-dimensional object here and notice how you've got a rectangle up here and the exact same rectangle across from it. So the faces across from one another are congruent, and then all around it are rectangles. So that's how we know it's a rectangular prism, because the bases are rectangles. Whereas in a triangular prism, if you notice, we've got a triangle here, the exact same triangle here, and they're congruent, and they're across from each other, and all around it are rectangles. All right? So this makes it a triangular prism because the base is a triangle, rectangular prism because the base is a rectangle. And the volume formula of both of these is simply the area of the base times the height. Now, what's going to be different between the two prisms is finding the area of the base, because for a rectangle it's pretty easy. Finding the area of a rectangle is just length times width, whereas a triangle's area is the base times height divided by 2. All right? Let's do a couple examples so you can see this in action. All right? So let's start with the rectangular prism. Right here, we've got a rectangular prism. It's 15 by 7 by 11. I'm going to shade in the base. I always like to shade in the base so I know where I'm working with. All right, so there's my base. And the height is always going to be the distance between the two bases. In other words, the 11 centimeters right here. All right, so if I want the volume of this, I'm going to do the area of the base. The base is a rectangle, that's 15 times 7, multiplied by the height, and the height is 11. All right? So if I just do 15 times 7 times 11, I should have the volume. Let's do that. 15 times 7 times 11, 1,155. So 1,155, and since the units are in centimeters, the volume is in centimeters cubed. And there's your volume. All right? And be careful. A lot of people think volume is always length times width times height. Length times width times height. That is true in a box like this one. It's not going to be true for every other solid, though. All right? And the reason why it works as length times width times height in this case is length times width gets you the area of the base times the height, which is our formula. Okay? So let's do another example, but the exact opposite of this one. So notice in this one, I'm going to give you the volume. We're going to find an unknown dimension. It says, find the unknown dimension if the volume is 900 cubic centimeters. Write and solve an algebra equation. Okay, so for this one, because I give you the volume, we're going to have to work backwards to find that missing dimension, and that's going to require some algebra. Okay, so just like before, I'm going to start by shading in my base so I know what's what. And now that we've done that, we can kind of see that my base is 10 times 6. My height is the missing bit of information here. All right, so let's set this up. The volume of a rectangular prism is the area of the base, 10 times 6, times the height, which we don't know. I'll call it x. And that should equal the volume. In this case, the volume is 900. Okay? So if we solve this equation, we should have the answer. Let's simplify this a little bit. 10 times 6 is 60. So this is really 60 times x. So 60x equals 900. So if I want to solve this, all I have to do is divide both sides by 60. And I should get it. X equals whatever that is. 900 divided by 60. 15. All right. So our unknown dimension here is 15 centimeters. Okay, so by using that volume formula, I can set up an equation and solve it. All right, let's do some slightly harder problems though with the triangular prism. Okay, now the reason why a triangular prism is harder is because the base isn't as simple as a basic rectangle. Okay, so take a look at this example right here. We've got a triangular prism, and I know that because see this triangle right here? We've got the exact same triangle directly across from it down at the bottom. And in between, The height here is 10 centimeters. Okay? So, to find the volume of this, we're going to have to find the area of the triangle and multiply it by the height. Okay, so our volume. Area of this triangle, I've got a right angle here, so 12 times 16 divided by 2. 12 times 16 divided by 2. And that's the area of the base, and I multiply that by the height of the prism, which is 10. All right? And luckily, our calculator can do that whole thing for us. 12 times 16 divided by 2 times 10. You can do it step by step if you want to, but let's just let the calculator do the hard work. Here we go. 960 centimeters cubed. There's your volume. Okay? And by the way, here's a good example of why you just can't simply do length times width times height, right? In this case, if we just multiplied length times width times height, we would get something totally different. Okay? Also notice this 20 centimeters, this length of this side, wasn't even important in the volume formula. We didn't need it. Okay? So, last example, and again, it's the opposite of the problem we just did. This time I'm going to give you the volume of the triangular prism, and we're going to find a missing dimension. Okay? So let's do that. It says, find the unknown dimension if the volume is 1800 centimeters cubed. Write and solve an algebra equation. Okay, so notice on this one, this is my base this time, this triangle, and I know that because the exact same shape is directly across from it on the other side. Okay, so when I set up my equation, I'm going to use this as my base. So the volume of this prism, this triangle, is 8 times, we don't know that dimension, x, divided by 2 because it's a triangle. So that's the area of the orange triangle, times the height of the prism. And notice the height of the prism goes sideways this time. It's the distance between the two bases. So times 18. And that should equal my volume of 1800. Okay, so it's the area of the triangle right here times the height, 18, equals the volume. All right? And before we solve this, let's simplify this a little bit. It's kind of a mess, right? We can kind of simplify all these numbers, right? We can do the 8, we can do the divide by 2, we could do the times 18. Let's just do that in one big swoop. So all of that comes out to 72. So it's all 72 times x equals 1800. That just makes things a lot simpler and easier to work with. All right, so now when we solve this, all we have to do is divide both sides by 72 and we'll have it. All right. So when we do that, these undo each other. X is going to get us, boom, 25. 25, in this case, centimeters. Okay? So all we did there was use our volume formula to set up an algebra equation, solve for x, then we found the unknown dimension. Okay? So that's how you work with the volume of prisms. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please hit that like button. Also subscribe because it really helps us out. But with that being said, good luck on your math and I will see you next time.